on the NewsChannel 5 network. This is Open Line.
Hello everyone, welcome to Open Line, a very interesting show tonight. We are talking about one of those very divisive issues that is getting a lot of attention already and will get more attention up in the legislature as this session progresses. There is a bill, the heartbeat bill. It talks about abortion. Obviously, people on both sides have very strong opinions. We have the sponsor of that bill with us tonight. Happy to have with us Senator Mark Pody, Republican from Wilson County. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, we're going to play some clips from people that have a different point of view from you. But let's first just ask you, what is the purpose of what has become known as the heartbeat abortion ban, the heartbeat bill?
In essence, it says that if there is a heartbeat detected, that they can no longer have an abortion. They can have an abortion up to that point in time, but as soon as there's a heartbeat detected, then they cannot have an abortion from there on. So
you could have a heartbeat detected at 6 weeks. There are women who don't know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. Is this effective? Are you attempting effectively to just ban abortions?
I'm just as blunt as I can. I wish I could, but that is not constitutional based on the laws that we have currently today. So no, and it is interesting that over 50% of the abortions now take place at the 7 or 8 week or before. So here we're talking, you know, there's just a couple weeks where most of the abortions are already taking place about that time frame anyway.
What if someone's raped and they're not aware they're pregnant, and then here it is? I mean, again, 6 weeks is when you can hear the heartbeat. You know, and at 8 weeks they realize I'm pregnant. What happens then?
Let me tell you, if somebody is raped, this is horrific. The person that did it, they need to be, I hate to say castrated, but they need to be put away. They need to make sure that this does not happen again. Those people are a menace to society, and it is something that's done on our women, and they need to be put away. And I don't know how I could even deal with that if that was my daughter, and then you had the father that's a rapist come back and out there. It's horrible. However, I've got to say, one of our main issues here is this. If we take this into two sides, and it's emotional on each side, and I'm going to come to the rapist in just a second, but if the one side says this is just a piece of tissue, it's just a piece of tissue, and it's if I'm a woman, it's my life, that tissue's in me. How should government have any right in there in telling me what I should do within my own body? And I understand that side. On the other side, if that is a life, then I've got to do everything I can to protect the life. Now, if I'm wrong, and I'm told that individual that piece of tissue, turns out that when we all die and such, we know that was all it was, and I made that person go through emotional issues and so forth, and I was wrong. But if I'm right, that was a life, I've got to do everything I can to protect that life. So if that person was raped, as horrible as that was, does that mean that life, that baby, that child should be terminated? And I've got to stand up for that child and say, I believe that that's a child. I believe that that's a life, and I want to protect that life.
So that's pretty difficult. So you're saying if somebody's raped, then they need to bring that baby, they need to have that baby.
I will do everything I can to say, you know what, as soon as that baby can live outside the womb, that, you know, and we can be talking 20-some weeks at that point, that we can help that happen, we can put that baby up. There are many, many people, they're standing in line for adopting newborn babies. And that way I don't want to force that mother to, if she doesn't want to raise that baby, if she doesn't want to have that baby, I will do everything I can to help her do that, pick up the cost of this and so forth. But for that 6-month period of time, and in this case, if it was 2 months that she didn't know about it, so for that 4 months, I'd be asking her to carry that baby until we could get into adopted parents.
So again, the purpose of the bill, once you hear a heartbeat, you can't get an abortion. What if an abortion's performed after you hear a heartbeat? What's the penalty?
All right, then the penalty would be against the doctor. and our bill clearly says that there's penalties for the doctor that did that, and that would include his license and things like that. So we're not going to be punishing the mother, but we are going to be punishing the person that performed that.
What would the punishment be? What is it? Do you know?
Sure. So we actually have it, and it says that a violation of this would be a Class A misdemeanor. The appropriate licensing agent shall suspend for a period of not less than 6 months the medical license of that physician who violates that.
And so how many, are there other states that have passed this?
Yes, well, there's other states that have passed it, and there's quite a few that have filed it already. This is a huge year that it's going through. So there's over a dozen states that are working on this right now.
Now, there's some group, well, I'll start. All right, the governor says he supports it. Is that right?
That's correct.
You have some pretty powerful support on this.
Yes, we do. Yes,
who else supports it in the legislature? Do you think it's going to pass? And I guess who supports it, and do you think it's going to pass?
All right. So I believe the speakers of both houses were supportive of it. They both said that this is something that they were comfortable with. I also believe that we know it's passed in the House committee already, in the full committee, and it was overwhelming. I mean, it was overwhelming. There was only 4 votes against it. That'll be on the floor next week, and I think it'll pass overwhelming on the floor next week. Then it's going to put it in the Senate, and the Senate should pass it shortly thereafter.
So the Tennessee Attorney General, Herbert Slattery, a Republican, said in an opinion that this bill was constitutionally suspect.
Yes.
Tennessee Right to Life, which obviously is against abortion, has not supported the bill due to concerns it would be struck down in the federal courts. Is that right?
That's correct. And I got to tell you, people might think that everybody that's pro-life is always exactly on board. I have some people that are very upset with me because they believe, like I do, that life starts at conception, and they say, Mark, you're bringing a heartbeat bill, and that means that they can have an abortion before that. That's killing somebody, and I understand that. I get that. And then I have my good friends at Right to Life, and they're saying, you know, if this isn't totally constitutionally sound and we go to court, we end up paying the court costs, and we end up giving that money to like Planned Parenthood or whoever's taking it against us, and we don't want to do that either. So, I mean, I got people that are on my side that aren't always jumping up and down for something like this as well.
So do you worry that, I mean, there are people that say this is fiscally irresponsible because it will result in a legal battle, and that could cost the state money. So where do you think we are on the constitutional bounds here? If this did wind up in court, which it probably would, you have the Attorney General saying it's constitutionally suspect and others. Where do you think this winds up?
Right. So, it's interesting. And I want to go back for just a moment. If we look at Jane Roe in 1973, and she's in Texas, and she has a case, and it obviously is Roe versus Wade, and this 46 years ago. And if we kind of think of what happened in 46 years ago, think about what we were doing for computers. We were getting a 5¼ floppy disk. If we look at the cars we were driving compared to what we have now, we have driver-assisted cars and so forth. And the advances in medical science has been the same way. It's just been light years. So what they were ruling was viable and those kind of options at that point. Science has progressed, and we jump all the way up to 1992. And in 1992, there's a case, and it's the Casey case, and it's out of Pennsylvania, and they actually challenged basically Roe versus Wade. And when somebody says, well, they challenged the Supreme Court, how can that be? It's already there. But the Supreme Court has been overturned over 200 times. 200 times there's been changes in the Supreme Court rulings. So just because we need to challenge the Supreme Court based on new information, new science, doesn't mean that we should say we're going to wait forever. This is another time that we need to be looking at this, and I think we have some constitutional facts that we can do. When they came out with the Casey ruling, they upheld a few things, and they said.
Now, what is the Casey ruling? What is
so
that?
The Casey ruling, and this is actually the Casey ruling. Okay, it's a Supreme Court ruling, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and it said first, a woman has the right to choose an abortion before viability without undue interference by the state. They have that right. The second thing it said, that the state has the power to restrict abortions after the fetal viability. So it clearly said that we have that. And then third thing it said, that the state has a legitimate interest in protecting the health of the woman and the life of the fetus. Okay, so I mean, it was literally saying these are some of the things that we can do. So I want to make sure my bill falls in these guidelines. It also went on to say that a woman's liberty to terminate a pregnancy is not so unlimited, and this is what they were saying. It is not so unlimited that the state cannot show its concern for the life of the unborn. It also says that at a later point of the fetal development, the state has an interest of sufficient force so that the right of the woman to terminate that pregnancy can be restricted. So I'm trying to write our law and our bill right in this.
Are you trying? I mean, is this an effort to define viability? It says we can't restrict it, the viability term. Is this moving viability back a ways so that it's now viable once there's a heartbeat?
Actually, we're moving viability a little bit different. In these cases, it talked about viability only on the outside of the womb. So only if that child is then taken out can that child live.
Can the child survive?
All right. However, other states and other rulings have said if that pregnancy is viable, when does that life start at that point? In fact, there's 38 different states that have laws that say if you kill a pregnant mother, you're charged with 2 crimes, because that pregnancy was a viable pregnancy. And so we're trying to take this and say our viability is going to be not just the viability if that child is outside the womb, but is that viability based on that pregnancy? Will that pregnancy take and continue on? So we're trying to change that term a little bit, so our viability is saying it is. And this, I think, is going to give us a different standing if we go to court, that we're going to say it's ruled differently than what it was 46 years ago.
Is this an effort to get a case before the Supreme Court that would challenge Roe versus Wade? Is that what's really happening here?
No. What we're going to happen is this. I want to save as many babies as practical, and if there's a heartbeat, and now this just makes sense, okay? If you're in the hospital and your heart stops, they pronounce you dead. Okay, doesn't it make sense that if the heart starts, you're alive? Okay, so we're trying to say that in this case, it makes sense that there's a heartbeat, that's a live, living baby in there. So we're trying to say it that way. Now, if somebody else challenges us, and if it's challenged, then they're going to put it in court to try and take it. It might go all the way up to a different court, but I'm certainly not going to take it to court to challenge it. It'll be up to the other side to do that. So I don't want it to go to court. I'm very comfortable just saying this is where we are and here's where we are at this point.
Realistically, this will go to court, though?
Realistically, it'll go to court.
And do you think it will do well in court?
I think this one will do well in court. There are several court cases going on right now. We've got cases in other states that have done this. We know that Ohio's recently passed some things. South Carolina's passed pro-life legislation. Kentucky just passed it a couple of weeks ago. And there's a lot of these that are going to be working through the court. But they're all a little bit different. Not one of the bills are exactly the same, and so as it goes through the court systems, we'll just kind of see which one goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, which ones are done at the appellate courts and so forth.
All right, we are going to take a break. That kind of sets the table. When we come back, I'll play some clips here from people that disagree with what you're saying, and I also want to hear from you, the callers. Call us. Here's your chance. What is your thought? There's the number at the bottom of the screen, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.